He said it was just for a little while, maybe a week at most. Now it's been 2 years. She rearranged my kitchen, criticized how I fold towels, claimed the guest room as hers, and somehow made me feel like the outsider in my own home. And him? He just watches in silence. My husband and I have been married for nearly 2 years, and our son is 10 months old. We live in Canada. I was raised here, while my husband moved here as an international student. My parents live nearby, which has been a huge help, especially during my pregnancy and after our son was born. My mom visits often to lend a hand, and she gets along well with my husband, so things have been smooth. His parents, however, live in another country. We've only visited them once since our wedding, which was about 7 months ago. Before that, the last time we saw them was at our wedding, which was held in their country. Recently, my husband mentioned that his mom was planning a long visit, and I was happy about it. We've just moved into a new home that I've nicely decorated, and we have a big guest room. I was actually looking forward to hosting her, especially because it would make my husband happy. A few days ago, he was grumbling about how complicated her visa application was. I told him I was surprised by how detailed it needed to be. That's when he explained that it's not a regular visa. This one could allow her to stay for up to 2 years, unlike the usual 6 months. I asked why she'd need to stay that long, and he told me she's thinking of retiring from her medical practice and possibly staying longer if we all feel it's a good fit. I was shocked. I told my husband he should just go with the regular visa application, because there's no way his mom would be staying for anything close to 6 months. I had assumed she'd only stay for about a month, just like we did when we visited her. He responded by saying she's his mother, that she tells him how lonely she feels, and that she can't stay with his brother since he lives with roommates. He said we shouldn't put a time limit on her visit, and that she's excited to help take care of our son. I told him we don't need extra help, we've been managing just fine on our own and with my mom's support. I was looking forward to hosting his mom as a guest, not having her live with us long term. He argued that it wasn't fair that my parents can visit freely while his mom can't. That hurt, because my parents have truly helped us a lot. I asked if he wanted me to limit how often my mom comes over, and he said no, that he likes her but still felt it wasn't fair to his own parents. I explained that when my mom visits, she goes home at the end of the day. That wouldn't be the case with his mom. I finished by saying he should stick to the simpler, regular visa because his mom can't plan to stay for that long. That night, he chose to sleep on the couch and has been distant ever since. I really hate that we've never treated each other like this before. I talked to my mom about it too. She said that having my MIL stay for extended periods would definitely affect me, and that this is something worth standing my ground on. I haven't seen him working on the visa application since. Last night, his mom called and he went out. When he came back, I asked how the conversation went. He said he told her he's still figuring out which visa is most suitable. Then he asked me if I had changed my mind. I said no. He just shook his head and turned on the TV. Update. Thanks for all the feedback on my original post. Yesterday, when my husband came home from work, I tried to talk to him again. He'd been giving me the cold shoulder ever since this whole issue started. I reminded him that I'm his wife and the mother of his child, and that this isn't how we should be communicating. That finally got us talking again. I stood firm on the point that his mom staying with us for such a long time just wouldn't work. If she wanted to be in Canada for more than a couple of months, she'd need to get her own place, learn how to drive or use public transport, things she's not used to since she has a driver in Pakistan. I told him clearly that I wasn't going to change my mind on this, and that he needed to be honest with both her and himself instead of keeping things vague with, "We'll see how it goes." He responded by saying he knew it would require some adjustments from us, but asked me to do this as a favor to him, saying that if I really loved him, I should be willing to do this for his mom. That really hurt me. I broke down crying because it felt like he was questioning my love for him over this. I explained that having his mom live with us long term would ruin the early years of parenting for us. I want us to raise our son our own way, without interference. I also said it would negatively affect our relationship, our intimacy, privacy, and daily life. My own parents are Pakistani too, so I know exactly how things would go if she moved in. He asked me again not to completely shut the door on the idea. He said he'd tell his mom that the plan is for her to stay for just about a month, and if I feel okay with it, we could reassess later. So we ended up agreeing to apply for the regular visa, which allows a maximum stay of 6 months. If I ever change my mind, we can consider the longer-term super visa. He had a long phone call with his mom, and his older sister joined in too. The call lasted about an hour and a half. He was out in the backyard the whole time and even came back in to grab a chair because it was going on so long. From what I could tell, he spent most of the call just listening. When he came back inside, he told me not to answer any calls or messages from his mom or sister. Since then, I've missed about 4 calls and received around 20 messages, mostly filled with Islamic quotes about the importance of respecting parents. I replied that I'm busy taking care of our son and can't talk right now. I asked him how the call went, and he said it went as expected. At least he's not giving me the cold shoulder anymore. I do feel a bit guilty because, like I said before, I was genuinely excited to host his mom for a month. But now I'm worried this situation may have caused serious, lasting damage not just between me and his mom and sister, but also between him and them. I told my MIL I'd call her back once my husband gets home. I'm really nervous about that conversation, but I know what my boundaries are now. Thanks again to everyone who gave advice, it really helped me feel more confident. Edit. Also, just to clarify something that kept coming up in my last post, some people assumed this was a cultural clash because I married someone from a different background. That's not the case. My husband and I are both Pakistani. I was born and raised here in Canada, and he moved here as a student. But he's been living here for about 10 years now too. Update. I ended up calling my MIL since she had left several missed calls and messages asking me to reach out. I put the call on speaker so my husband, who was lying on the couch, could hear the conversation too. She told me that my husband had said it would be best if she kept her visit to just 1 month since it would be her first time in Canada and because we were currently very busy with our baby. She seemed upset, saying that ever since he left for Canada at 18, he had dreamed of having her visit for an extended period, and now, suddenly, he was asking her to cut it short. She said she knew it must be because of me. I explained that the decision had been mutual and based on our current situation, but she didn't want to hear it. She said if staying longer than a month was such a big issue, she'd respect that, but added that in Pakistan, it's expected for in-laws to live with the married couple, like her daughter does. She said she had assumed I was in touch with my Pakistani and Islamic values when I married her son, but now she felt disappointed and thought I had become too whitewashed. At that point, my husband asked me to hand him the phone. Before I did, I calmly told her I was confident in my identity and heritage, and that clearly her son was too. Then I gave him the phone. He took the call outside to the backyard. I was still so upset, I ended up eavesdropping. He was on the phone with both of his parents. I heard him tell them that he didn't escape to Canada, he had left with their full support. And that when he introduced me to them, he never hid the fact that I was born and raised here. He explained that our lives were different from those in Pakistan, and we couldn't be expected to live the same way. He listened for quite a while, probably about half an hour, and kept repeating that things were different now. He ended the call by saying we were both genuinely looking forward to her visit and would make sure she had a wonderful time during her 30-day stay with us and her grandson. Afterward, he apologized to me on his mom's behalf and asked if I could let her earlier comments go and still be okay with the 1-month visit plan. While I don't feel as excited about it as I did before, I told him I'd go along with it. Thanks again for all the thoughtful feedback. Along with advice from my own mom, the support here really helped me feel more confident in holding firm to my boundaries. I know that having my MIL live with us long-term just wouldn't be something I could handle, and seeing others agree made a huge difference. Update. After my last update, I had fully committed to graciously hosting my MIL for exactly 31 days, no more, no less. I was mentally prepared and willing to be polite and respectful during her visit. But unfortunately, we had an uncomfortable exchange a few days ago on Eid, which I shared in another subreddit focused on MIL issues. Here's what I wrote. My MIL is scheduled to visit us in Canada toward the end of April for a 1-month stay. For background, I was born here in Canada, while my husband immigrated about 10 years ago. We've been married for 2 years and have a 10-month-old son. My in-laws live in Pakistan, and while my parents are also originally from Pakistan, they moved to Canada a year before I was born. Initially, my MIL had hoped to stay much longer, but I made it clear to my husband that I wouldn't be comfortable with anyone staying in our home for an extended period. As a result, she had to significantly shorten her trip, which didn't sit well with her. I had posted about this previously, and someone suggested I visit this subreddit for support. Since then, I had made peace with the 1-month stay and was genuinely planning to be cordial throughout. Then Eid happened. We celebrated at my parents' house. It was our first Eid with our baby, and we were overjoyed. Dressing him up in his tiny traditional kurta shalwar made the day even more special. I sent my MIL some pictures of the celebration since she often asks us to share photos. But her response really caught me off guard. She began lamenting the distance between us and implied that marrying someone not from Pakistan leads to this kind of heartache for parents. She said it was unfair that my parents get to enjoy time with her son and grandson while she doesn't. Reading that message made my heart sink. I understand that she misses us, but for her to imply she regrets our marriage was deeply hurtful. I didn't reply, I just left the message on read. When I showed it to my husband, he sincerely apologized and thanked me for not engaging with her response. Now, I'm trying to figure out how to emotionally prepare myself to host her for a month after that message. Normally, I'd turn to my mom for advice, since she has experience dealing with traditional expectations from relatives in Pakistan, but in this case, I'm worried she might take offense on my behalf and not be able to hide it when my MIL arrives. So I guess I'm here partly seeking advice, and partly just needing to vent. I'm doing my best to compartmentalize and not let this cast a shadow on the rest of Eid we're still celebrating today with friends. But it's hard not to let that message linger in the back of my mind. Today's update. My husband told me today that his mom's visa application was denied. They're planning to request the official notes explaining the decision, but he doesn't think it will change anything. According to him, it was always a coin toss. Visa rejections like this often happen when the applicant doesn't have strong enough ties to their home country, which makes officials think they won't return. He assumed that having his dad stay back would help, but apparently, it wasn't enough. Honestly, I won't lie, it feels like a huge burden has been lifted. I'm trying to look disappointed, but deep down, I was dreading her visit. He said she was devastated when he told her. She even suggested we consider relocating to Pakistan, which I love, but that's not happening. When he said no, she gave him his uncle's contact info in the UAE, hoping we'd move there instead. Her idea was that it'd only be a short flight from them, and we could raise our family in a more Islamic environment. He said he'd talk to the uncle, just to ease her mind, but assured me that we're not going anywhere. This is our home now, and his career is flourishing here. I was honestly frustrated that he didn't just shut the whole idea down completely. I feel like being clear is better than giving false hope, but I get that he didn't want to upset her further. I'll call her tomorrow to check in and express sympathy. It's late in Pakistan now. And even though I wasn't exactly excited about hosting her anymore, I had fully committed to making the best of it. Now, with her unable to visit us here, it probably means that most of our future family trips will be to Pakistan. We already have one coming up in December for his brother's wedding. I want to say thank you to everyone who supported me and offered advice. It really sucks that all this tension and hurt feelings built up for something that didn't even happen. I know she probably resents me now, and I've tried to let go of the things she said about my background and identity, but truthfully, I see her differently now. I'll continue being supportive for my husband's sake, but in some ways, maybe this outcome was for the best. Relevant comments. Boop. So, we've agreed that we'll likely start taking annual trips to Pakistan, maybe for a couple of weeks each year, so my MIL can spend time with her grandson, especially around smaller Islamic holidays. It feels like a reasonable compromise, and honestly, I'm just relieved we've come to a solution. My only concern now is that my husband might expect all our vacations to be in Pakistan going forward, and I still want us to travel to other places as a family. But that's a conversation for another time. Someone suggested meeting my in-laws in other countries instead of always flying to Pakistan, and I actually loved that idea. Definitely something I'll bring up when the opportunity arises. As for our citizenships, my son and I are Canadian citizens only, while my husband has dual citizenship. I'm being extremely cautious with our travel plans. I'll keep our passports with me at all times and have the Canadian consulate's contact info saved, just in case. I hate that it's even necessary to think this way, but when it comes to my son, I'm not taking any risks. Then someone mentioned that kids born to Pakistani parents are considered citizens by descent under Pakistani law. That caught me off guard because we never applied for my son's niqab, Pakistan's national ID for overseas citizens, so I assumed he wasn't considered a citizen. The last time we visited, both of us used our Canadian passports and got visas. My husband didn't need one, obviously. Turns out, even without a niqab, he might still be considered a citizen. I called the Pakistani consulate, explained the situation, and the man I spoke to literally said he could be. I was like, what does that even mean? Then a woman came on the line and explained that yes, technically he is considered a citizen under Pakistani law, but since we haven't applied for the niqab, he still needs a visa. So, in their words, he's a citizen but also not really. That's when it hit me, I was born to Pakistani parents too. I asked about my own status, and it turns out I'm technically a citizen as well. My parents never got me a niqab either, so we just assumed I wasn't. Apparently, I'll need to go through a formal renunciation process if I want to make that official. I'm honestly glad I found out now so I can handle it before our trip. So, for our December visit for my brother-in-law's wedding, I'll be extra careful. I'll make sure I've got all the necessary documents on hand and that I'm prepared for anything. I really hope my MIL will be too wrapped up in the wedding to stir up any drama, but either way, I'm going in prepared. I'm not taking any chances when it comes to my son. Update. Boop. Our phone call started off fine just for the first 2 minutes. I told her how sorry I was that her visa got denied and that the officers really should have been more compassionate. But it went downhill quickly after that. She immediately jumped to how this probably means she'll never be able to visit Canada, and how a few weeks a year isn't enough time with her grandson. Then she brought up how my parents have had 2 years of closeness with us, so now it's their turn. She also asked if my husband had spoken to his uncle about the job in the UAE, since he hadn't replied to her texts. I told her I didn't know, but that it wouldn't matter either way. We live in Canada, we've built a life here, started a family, we have our support system here, and my husband has a great career. I reassured her we'd prioritize family vacation so she could see our son often. She pivoted again, talked about how my sister-in-law lives with her in-laws, how horrible her own MIL is, and how lucky I am to have in-laws who just want to be close to us. That I should be more grateful. I said I am grateful for my husband, our son, and the life we've built. I then ended the call politely but quickly before I said something I'd regret, especially since she's still upset about the visa situation. Right after, I texted my husband to give him a heads up before she tried to twist the story. He might not be thrilled, since he wanted to keep her hopeful about the UAE idea, but honestly, I'm done sugarcoating things. She needs to hear the truth, we are not moving. Period. From now on, I'll only reach out to her for major holidays like Eid or when my husband asks me to send pictures. That's it. And honestly? Thank you to the visa officer who made this call. I know how that sounds, but I'm beyond exhausted. Apologies for the repeated updates. This is part rant, part closure. She's just been so disrespectful lately, and it's gotten to a point where I need to draw a line. Also, I followed up on a comment about citizenship and called the Pakistani consulate. The woman there confirmed that yes, my son is technically a Pakistani citizen by descent even without a niqab. Then I asked about myself, and it turns out I'm considered one too, even though I never applied for anything. I'll be looking into what this means for our travel plans before we head to my brother-in-law's wedding in December. Anyway, thanks again to everyone who helped along the way. As far as I'm concerned, this whole situation is done now. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Just to clarify, do you and your son hold Canadian citizenship and passports? Boop. Yes, all three of us have Canadian passports. My husband also holds a Pakistani passport in addition to his Canadian one. Commenter 1. So you and your son wouldn't face any trouble returning to Canada. But do you think your in-laws might try to keep your son in Pakistan? Also, I think your husband is being unnecessarily cruel by giving his mother false hope about moving to the UAE. It wouldn't be hard for her to find out from his uncle that nothing's been discussed. Boop. I might sound naive, but I really don't believe they'd go so far as to actually detain my son. Emotional manipulation is more their style. And to be fair, my husband has made it clear to me that we're not moving anywhere. He just didn't want to break the news to her outright, which I agree is its own kind of unkind. Still, I plan to look into what our possible Pakistani citizenship might mean for travel, and how to go about renouncing it. Honestly, I'm not even excited about this trip anymore. If I had it my way, we'd just show up for the wedding and then spend the rest of our time elsewhere. Commenter 2. If your long-term plan is to stay in Canada permanently, I'd recommend officially renouncing your Pakistani citizenship. Dual citizenship can sometimes bring more complications than it's worth. Is your husband a Canadian citizen, or does he just have PR status? If you want to keep things clean and avoid future issues, especially with your MIL, I'd make sure your son is solely a Canadian citizen too. Boop. That's exactly my plan. I'll be starting the process to renounce both mine and my son's Pakistani citizenship. I want everything to be straightforward, especially where our son's legal status is concerned. Commenter 3. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. Desi in-laws really can be a challenge, and the whole foreign daughter-in-law dynamic only makes it worse. It sounds like she was blaming Canada before, and now that that didn't work out, she's turning that blame onto you. It's frustrating, especially when your husband, who also chose to live abroad, isn't getting the same criticism. I'm glad you're putting boundaries in place for your own peace. You really need some emotional distance right now, especially since nothing needs solving at the moment. Please talk to your own parents too, especially about any fears you have around traveling to Pakistan. And I'd also suggest consulting an immigration lawyer, maybe one who's familiar with both Canadian and Pakistani law. That way, you'll have a clear idea of your rights and what precautions to take. You're absolutely right to consider renouncing the citizenship. You don't want any unnecessary ties if it could complicate things. Boop. Yeah, I've decided I'm not going to worry about this for now. December is still 8 months away, and I'm not stressing about it in advance. I've already limited contact with my MIL to just big occasions. My parents were honestly relieved when they heard how everything played out. My mom even said she didn't think I would have been able to deal with it all. I appreciate the advice here, but some of it feels like it's based on worst-case assumptions where my husband suddenly becomes someone else entirely once we're in Pakistan. I know him, I trust him when he says we're not moving. But even with that trust, I still plan to renounce the Pakistani citizenship for both me and our son. I just don't see any upside to it, and I'd rather not be under any part of Pakistan's legal umbrella if I don't have to be.